Welcome to New Stripe City, a podcast for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie. As usual, my co-host G is here to join us. G, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, guys. Happy Sunday. So I wanted to talk about our first topic for today. And as some diehard Bengals fans, we watched as our Bengals have had some continued success in the regular season, but have kind of let us down when it comes to the postseason. So it's what exactly is it that's standing in the way from our Bengals getting all the way to the Super Bowl? Is it the team players? Is it the coaching staff? Is it the owner? Like, we're trying to get down to the bottom of why we haven't made it to the Super Bowl, why we haven't won a Super Bowl yet. So yeah, what do you think?
I think it's a combination of things. Honestly, I think that it's the coaching. I feel like in a lot of the games and in some of these playoff games that we've, not been able to get past our opponent, it seems like they haven't been prepared. And I think that starts with coaching. You have to have the right coaching game plan to go into it. I kind of think back to one that kind of sticks out in my mind is I believe it was either the first year, I think it was the first or second year with Jay Gruden, where he didn't even target AJ Green in the entire first half.
Yeah, I remember that game.
I understand how you don't involve your very best player on offense in the first half, even if you're going to use him as a distraction or whatever you plan to use him for. You didn't even target the guy. And then I think with Marvin Lewis, it comes to managing those timeouts and, responding to certain momentum plays. I don't think that this coaching staff does a great job of capitalizing on situations. I don't think that they do a good job of making second half adjustments. I mean, Marvin Lewis himself even said that he doesn't even believe in second half adjustments. And anyone who's played football on any kind of level, whether it's peewee football or whether it's, high school or college, knows that there are definitely second half adjustments. You look at what you did in the first half, what worked, what didn't work, and then you make adjustments to see how to improve in the second half. I mean, Bill Belichick is one of the best coaches of possibly all time, and he definitely does it. So I think that it's a coaching thing more so than anything. But what are your thoughts on it?
I totally agree with you. It comes down to the coaching, and even deeper than the coaching is like the mindset of the coaches. I don't believe that Marvin, I don't believe that Jay Gruden, I don't believe that any of these coaches or even the coordinators have had the mindset of our goal is to win the Super Bowl. Like, I feel like our mindset is too small as far as like the coaching staff. I think if the coaches believe like we're going to the Super Bowl, that carries down to the players, and the players believe like, oh, we're going to the Super Bowl, and then you get results from there. So like Marvin Lewis just doesn't strike me as that type of coach where it's just like the sky is the limit. Like, no, it's more so for him. It's like, well, let's have a winning season. Let's win a playoff game. And to me, that's setting your sights way too low. And that opens up for your 8-8 seasons. That opens up for the season like we had last year, where you have all this talent, but we have been yet to really execute how far we can really go with it. And then little things like Marvin's time management. Like, why has this man still not figured out how to call a timeout? Like, I really don't understand. And then the fact that you think it's okay to announce that you don't make second half adjustments, like, that's crazy. So if you're down by 20 points in the first half and you're not going to make any adjustments, how are you going to win? Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. So I definitely think at the end of the day, it comes down to the coaching, because I think it's the coach's responsibility to instill a mindset in their players that we're going to win. We want to be the best, and the best is the Super Bowl winning teams. So if you don't have that mindset going into it, it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are as far as the physical. Mentally, they won't take it there. So that's how I feel about it.
Right. I think you made some great points there, especially when you touched on, Marvin Lewis setting the bar so low. And we see that year in, year out, that he comes up with this stuff saying that, well, you have to win to actually get into the playoffs first. And that's cool. I understand that you have, regular season goals where you want to win the division, you want to win this many games. But at the end of the day, you have to have that bar set high. Just making the playoffs isn't cool, like you said. Another thing that I hate and that the national media loves to say, and when anybody talks about the Bengals, it's always about that playoff win. I honestly don't care about a playoff win.
No.
I'm not going to be satisfied if the Bengals go, to the first round and get a win this year, and then they get knocked out in the next round. That's not going to be, that's not what I'm looking for. I was, kind of born a little bit after they think actually before they went to the Super Bowl, but I didn't, I wasn't able to witness that. So a lot of the older generation of Bengals fans, they witnessed that. I've never witnessed that. I want to have my Super Bowl. Like, I want to win a Super Bowl. Like, get into the AFC divisional playoff game. Like, all of that stuff, that doesn't matter to me. Like, if you're not getting a ring, it doesn't really matter to me. Like, I'm not going to be satisfied with that. And it's crazy because a long time ago, probably when we were entering into the beginning of this rebuild around 2011, I had a roommate who was a Philadelphia Eagles fan, and he was always teasing me about how the standards in Cincinnati are so low. And he was like, you guys are happy with just getting to the playoffs. He was like, Philadelphia, we're not happy with just getting to the NFC divisional playoff round or anything like that. And this was around the time that they fired Andy Reid. And I'm not saying that we need to blow up our staff or anything like that, but we need to have that same mindset. Like, we have one of those, and for the past 5 or 6 years, we've had one of the best talented teams on paper. That is a Super Bowl like talented roster. Like, why wouldn't you want to aim for the Super Bowl? Why would you just be happy with a super ultra talented roster that ends up just winning a playoff game?
I mean, that to me, that comes down to like, then why are you here? Like, what is your purpose? And then it's like, and I mean, to switch sports, I think about Kevin Durant, and people give him such a hard time for doing what he did and going to Golden State. But to me, it's the mindset behind it. If his goal is to win a championship ring, it's no longer about the money. It's all about reaching that goal. And if the Golden State Warriors are the ones who can get me there, either the quickest or if that's the best route to get there, I'm going to take that route. So it's all about the mindset. Like, if we're thinking that Super Bowl is where we're going to go, oh man, that changes a lot of different things. Like, it changes how we're going to run our defense. It changes the direction of our offense. And it begins there in that mindset. Like, it's not about the money, guys. You're not just out here just to get paid. I just want y'all to just be out here and play for more. Like, want more out of your season. Don't expect your season to end after 17 weeks. Don't expect your season to end after like 20 weeks. Like, you want to go to the Super Bowl. And like, your mindset should be by any means necessary. But that's also the competitor in me too.
Right. And it's funny that you say that because Corey Dillon came on this week and he kind of talked a lot about his time with the Bengals. But before that, he actually talked about how the culture here wasn't the same as it was in New England with, wanting to win that Super Bowl and things of that nature. But one interesting thing that happened was he actually kind of talked and said that he kind of apologized for some of the way things kind of went down during his exit. He also talked about how he kind of wants to mend fences with the Bengals. And it's crazy around the timing of this because, a couple weeks ago we did our top 5 Bengals list, and I controversially added Corey Dillon to my list, to my top 5, and we kind of touched on it. And, the main point was that there was a little bit of a bad aftertaste of Corey Dillon. Even though he's been one of the greatest franchise players here, he obviously is the best running back that we've ever had come through this franchise, and he's one of the best players, but he actually had a weird relationship with the Bengals. It was almost kind of like a Carson Palmer kind of thing in a sense, but he was a little bit more vocal. Obviously, Carson made his demands, but Corey said a lot of controversial things. We talked about, I'd rather flip burgers than play for Cincinnati Bengals. But he always held kind of a special place in my heart as a fan just because I was actually at the game where he broke the rushing record, which was, in a sense, the actual first win in Paul Brown Stadium. So I always had that memory of Corey. So it's cool to me that Corey kind of is, turn the other cheek, acknowledge that what he did was wrong, and acknowledge that he wants to be remembered as a Cincinnati Bengal. What are your thoughts on that, G?
I definitely have mixed feelings about Corey Dillon, and it's definitely stemming from the things that he said about the Bengals. Because when I first, think about Corey Dillon and like what he did for the Bengals, like it was like I felt good talking about the Bengals back then. Like, yeah, but we got Corey Dillon now. Like, but Corey Dillon's out there on the field making plays though. And then after all that, and he was like saying, I'd rather flip burgers than play. And I'm just like, man, really? Like, I'm over here like rooting you on as a fan and you don't even want to be here. I think I understand the frustration that he had because some of the things that he was frustrated about, I think are very accurate and they're probably true. But I'm also one that believes that you should think about things before you actually say them out loud. Even though you feel that way, that's probably not something you should say in public. That's probably something you should tell to Mike Brown in a meeting or something like that. Like, this is how I'm feeling, man. Like, I feel like I'd rather flip burgers than play for you. So how can we fix this? Like, I just want not just Corey Dillon, but a lot of players in general, even Carson Palmer, like, think a little bit deeper or think twice before you speak publicly about how you feel or what you're feeling at that moment. Because you can't take it back.
I totally agree. And I think, you know, listening to his interview, I think, like you said, we can kind of see why he would feel that way. We don't agree with how he went about things, but, you know, he pretty much chopped it up to he was a guy that basically won on almost every level of football before playing for the Bengals. And he had said something like he had never lost 3 games before he even played for the Bengals. 3 games 1 year. So I see where he was coming from. And another point that he made was that a lot of the players on the field felt the same. They just didn't vocalize it, which I could kind of see being true as well. But the fact that he vocalized it definitely tarnished his image, I think, with the fans. But one thing that I will give him credit for is that, you know, and I thought about this, somebody else made a pretty good point on this. Look at the mind frame that he was in during his age. And, you know, we tend to kind of pass it off on, you know, professional athletes, but then we have to think of ourselves. And I think one guy, I think it was James Rapine, he has another podcast. He made a good point, and he was like, think about with the Facebook, like, I think it's like a time flip thing where it shows you your old posts and stuff like that. He was like, think about some of the stuff that you've said on Facebook, and you look at it now, like 10 years later, or, you know, 5 years later, and you're like, what was I even thinking to possess me to post something like that or anything else? And I've done it before, and I'm like, wow, what, I said that? Like, I can't even remember that I said that. And I think there is a little bit in it, not making an excuse for him, but it is like coming from the perspective of somebody that was 20, you know, 21, spewing out how they felt about certain things. You probably handled things in a different manner back then when you were younger than when you were able to mature, because you made the comment that, you know, now I'm 40, I kind of look at things differently. You know, I definitely shouldn't have said what I did back then. So, I mean, I felt like it was kind of cool because I don't think we're ever going to get that moment, and I might be wrong, that Carson Palmer is going to come out and say, hey, you know, I was wrong for what I did. You know, Corey actually took the blame. It wasn't like he was like, well, you know, if Mike Brown was doing this or Mike Brown was doing, he wasn't really pointing the finger like that. And it's also crazy because we were talking before the show, he had a TMZ interview where he kind of like bashed Marvin and was saying that, you know, in order for the Bengals to take the next step, they need to get rid of Marvin. And he touched on that in the interview. He was like, you know, I'm not saying that I had a problem with Marvin. I'm not saying that, you know, Marvin should get fired. It was just honest. It was just honest. It was just an honest assessment of the team. Marvin's been there for 15 years. They haven't done what they – and, I mean, everybody has said that. We've said it. Other media outlets have said it. But all of a sudden, when Corey Dillon said it, it was supposed to be, you know, he's taking a shot. And so he kind of touched that as well. But, I mean, I think that it's better for both sides, man. I mean, we can't ignore the fact that Corey Dillon was one of the greatest Bengals, and Corey Dillon can't ignore the fact that he had some of his best years with the Bengals. So I think that it's cool to see if we can get Corey Dillon and the Bengals and Mike Brown all to, you know, bury the hatchet. Why not? Why not change the culture? Has changed, because I feel like had we had the culture that we have now, I don't think that Corey Dillon would have kind of been like he was. Now, he still probably could have, but I don't think it would have played out like it did. Given
no, I don't think so at all. And then it's like I think it's very big of him to stand up and say something. I also think it's bigger of you as an athlete to feel that way and then do something about it. So if he's saying that a bunch of like athletes felt that like that way, that frustration, like, change it, y'all. Like, don't forget that just because you're a player and you're not the owner, you're not the head coach, that you have a voice and you can be a method of change too. So even now that he's coming out and saying this, like, if some Bengals are still feeling some sort of frustration, like, look at that as, hey, like, now's the time to actually stand up and try to make a change now, because we don't want this to go on for another 15 years. I don't want to say something and then have to apologize and like years down the line. Like, let's fix it now, because I feel like those same frustrations are still festering with the Bengals players. So, I mean, I think it's a big.
Oh, yeah.
it's huge. Like, yeah, I'm glad he said it. I'm happy he apologized. But just the fact that you brought it up, I think that starts new conversation and more avenues of change for the Bengals.
Oh yeah, it definitely does, because I know, like, during the draft, I actually got the chill during the draft with Peter Warrick, and Peter Warrick didn't have any pleasant things to say about Mike Brown or Marvin Lewis at the time, and you could tell that he actually said that he hasn't been back to Cincinnati, and it wasn't because of I guess, like, the losing culture. It was more so of how he was kind of handled his last year there. And
Yeah.
Peter Warrick actually had a good year before he got hurt. He was on, like, a lot of people, and I kind of got into it with some guys on Reddit, and they were like, Peter Warrick is a bust. And I'm like,
he was on his way.
It the fact that Achilles Smith was his quarterback? Because, like, I actually watched the Chiefs game. I think it was 2003. It was like Marvin's first year. And Peter Warrick went off in that game. Like, when he had John Kitna and you had some structure there, he actually went off. So I'm like, was dude really a bust? Like, I really can't say that, because, you know, his last year with us, he had a really good year. Then he got hurt. And then, you know, after that, they just ended up shipping him off. And the way he kind of chopped it up to me was, you know, Marvin Lewis didn't campaign for Mike Brown to keep me. He kind of was just like a yes man. Like, whatever Mike Brown wanted him to do, he was cool with. And so I kind of understood why Peter Warrick felt that way. But it's, you know, that was back in 2004. It's 2017 now, and he still felt some type of way about that. Now, in his defense, he definitely said that he did want to come back to Cincinnati, and he did want to see how things were. And he definitely was fond of the fans and everything like that. It was just, I didn't know how they did me, you know, that last year. And,
the
you
business
know,
aspect.
Your ex-players to feel that way. You don't want them to feel like, well, I was done this kind of way. I was done kind of dirty. So I feel like this whole, you know, honoring of the 50th anniversary of the Bengals and bringing those guys back is the perfect way to kind of bury the hatchet with a lot of those players.
Right. I totally agree. And I don't think Peter Warrick was a bust at all. I think Peter Warrick was on his way to being something really nice. And then that injury, wasn't it like an Achilles injury or something?
Yeah.
Or his knee or something.
I'm pretty sure we have some diehard fans that will let us know exactly what it was in the comments. But I definitely remember it was something to, like, a lower leg.
Yeah.
Definitely was. And, like, I watched that, and you guys can go out and watch that YouTube game. Peter Warrick went off in that game where we beat the undefeated Chiefs. And I want to say dude had like 1,000 yards that season. So, you know, yeah, he wasn't what Ocho Cinco ended up being, but 1,000-yard receiver, you can't really call a guy bust after.
You can't.
I mean, honestly.
Right.
Honestly.
Agreed.
And G, we talked about on our last episode how why we had, you know, some I guess what our reasoning for Carson Palmer leaving was. I actually had someone drop a jewel on us on Reddit. I can't remember the guy's name. I really wish I could so I could give him the credit, but shout out to this dude. So this dude leaked some information that apparently he's been harboring on for the longest. And I guess dude actually was friends with Frosty Rucker, who used to play with the Bengals. And Frosty Rucker actually played with Carson in college. He played with him in Cincinnati, and he's still playing with Carson in Arizona. And I guess this guy would, you know, have conversations with Frosty. And Frosty actually kind of alluded to some of the reasons. And I think he said it was 3 years before Carson left, but some of the stuff that kind of led up to it. So apparently Carson Palmer approached Mike Brown with a proposition to build an indoor practice facility for the Bengals and said that he was willing to give up, restructure his own deal so that Mike Brown would have the money to be able to do it. And Mike Brown basically just like pushed his offer down the drain. He didn't even really acknowledge it or anything like that. And apparently that was like the first strike that kind of put a little bit of strain on Carson Palmer's relationship with the front office. So I thought that was interesting, finding out from, like, it seems like a pretty valid source. I mean, I don't see why Carson would lie to Frosty Rucker about something like that.
Right.
But it's just interesting that happened. Like, why wouldn't Mike Brown take a deal like that? Does that make sense to you? Like, if Carson,
if I'm your star quarterback right now, and see that's really messed up, because you know that they have an indoor facility now, right? Wasn't Marvin the one that was behind the decision to get that? So to me, it's very strange that Marvin, your head coach, can push for it, but you're not listening at all to your franchise quarterback. Like, and then it's like, Marvin, if you know that your franchise quarterback is trying to do this, and obviously, since this is something that you push for, this is something you want to do, why not stand with your quarterback too? So that's kind of interesting too. Like, why wasn't Marvin more involved with Carson to help him push that? Because they both wanted the same thing. And why Mike Brown just knocked Carson's idea out the water. That's interesting.
Well, there was a lot of feedback on that post, and actually that actually did happen. Like, if you think back to it, like there was like a double team effort from like Carson and Marvin to kind of get some things changed, and then Carson just kind of was like, all right, I don't like how this is going, and he just went his way, and then Marvin Lewis just kept pushing for those things to happen. So I think that Carson probably tried, he probably got some pushback, and he was probably just like, no, if it
just gave up on it
this year. Right, because I think it definitely took some time for it to actually get built. And so it could have been something where it's like, I want it built like immediately now, and if it's not, you know, then I'm going in another direction. But I thought that was pretty cool to see that, you know, people brought that point up. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Looks like we have a comment in the chat, and it looks like Nathan Davis, it looks like he responded to your Warriors comment. So he said that the Warriors had a ring already with or without KD. And then he also said that a playoff win is a start to boost morale. I can kind of see that. But then he said, but yes, the ultimate goal is to win a Super Bowl, going back to our first topic. So
yeah, the Warriors had a ring, but I'm speaking more on Kevin Durant's personal goal. Like, his goal is to get his own ring. That's why he made the move. So, yeah, you're right. They already had it. But I was just speaking more so on Kevin Durant's move by itself. And I definitely believe we should celebrate small victories, like winning AFC North, winning one playoff game. But that's still in the idea of I'm shooting for the ultimate goal, which is the Super Bowl. So even if I don't make it to the Super Bowl, I've already won the AFC North. I've won 2 or 3, or I've won a playoff game. I've won another playoff game. So, yeah, I think that does boost morale, but that comes with your first mindset being shooting for the stars, which is the Super Bowl.
Right. And let me put this out there, just piggybacking off of and kind of going back to the whole playoff thing. This is where I'm at with it. I feel like some of our fans would be satisfied with just sweeping the Steelers, and I hate the Steelers just like any other. But if you told me this, if the Steelers, if you could win a Super Bowl while being swept by the Steelers, having their fans talk all the trash during the season, versus just sweeping them and, you know, losing in the AFC divisional round, I'm taking the Super Bowl. I don't care.
Me too. I don't care. Because if they sweep us and we still don't go anywhere and they go to the Super Bowl, they're going to laugh even harder in our face. Like, oh, yeah, well, we beat y'all twice in the season. So what? We won the Super Bowl. It's just like, you look crazy as hell for saying that. Like, but we sweep y'all, though.
Like, yeah, and that's why they talk so much trash about some of our fans. It's because we take, like, these small minor victories, and it's like, if we want everything to change, it doesn't just have to change with the fans or with the team. It has to change with the fans too. Our outlook has to be, we want to win a Super Bowl. Like, so, I mean, you look at the Cowboys, and yeah, they won a lot of Super Bowls in the 90s, but they haven't won recently. And look at what their goals are. Oh, we're going to go out and win, you know, the Super Bowl this year, even though I don't think that honestly, I don't really think that they've done much more than us. Honestly, they've done a lot of the same stuff to us, but they still get held on a higher pedestal just because they won in the 90s, even though that's 30 some odd years ago now. So, but
they still have that relentless idea that our ultimate goal is to see the Super Bowl again. Like, and I hate Cowboy fans. They're annoying as hell, but I can't be mad that y'all, the main goal for you guys is this winning idea. Like, we're going to win. We want to win. And I love that. Y'all fans are annoying, but I love that that's what you're shooting for every year. Every year is a Super Bowl year, and that's the way I think it should be.
Right. And it's crazy because I think that we hear some of our players say the Super Bowl thing more than we actually hear the coaches. Like, we hear Andy Dalton say it. We hear AJ Green say it. But it's like, Marvin Lewis is always like, oh, hold on, pump the brakes. We have to win here. Like, come on.
Why, Marvin? Why can't we go full speed ahead? Why we got to pump our brakes?
Right. I don't know if he's like somebody that believes in, I don't know, maybe he's one of those people that think that if you say something that it's going to jinx you or anything. It's like, Marvin, we already have bad luck. If something's going to happen, it's going to happen to our team. I mean, honestly.
Right. You should just accept it at this point.
Right. What else could really happen? Like, I mean, everything has happened pretty much has happened. And if 2015 wasn't evidence of that, I don't know what else you really need. But wrapping things up, G, I want to talk about another somewhat controversial issue. And I kind of want to get some of our listeners' thoughts in the chat on this as well. Tyler Eifert is obviously recovering from an injury, a pretty major injury. He's had a whole bunch of injuries. He's barely finished seasons. I don't think he's actually even played a full season before.
Nope.
But if you look at his Instagram account, the guy is out there, like, you know, riding on waves, like doing a lot of pretty daring stuff on his vacation time, which kind of has, and because you have people who participate in certain sports, you know, during the off season that could potentially, cause an injury. What are your thoughts on some of the stuff that Tyler Eifert is doing? Do you think that he should be doing some of these kind of defying sports in his spare time? Or do you think that given his injury history, he kind of needs to be a little bit more careful?
Now, the wild and fun side of me is always like, live it on the edge, go live your best life, go have fun. But then there comes a time where you have to realize at 26, you've been in the league, 4 or 5 years now? You've yet to complete a full season. Let's bring it back into the realm of what are my goals? What am I trying to do here? Because now it's like I'm always hurt. I'm still out here living life on the edge. When is it going to add up to where I can get my job done the way I'm supposed to and I can still have fun? So to me, I think it's great that he's doing all these things. But it's only great if you can show us something on the field. Like, you've shown us highlights, but we've yet to see you for a whole season actually take us. I don't know how far you can really take us because you haven't been on the field for a whole season. And I think mentally, I don't know if your mind is in the right place. If you're still hurt and in recovery, you're out here jumping waves. That's cool and all, but where's your head at about the upcoming season? Where's your head at about where your body's going to be in like 2 to 3 years? So, yeah, it's a little concerning to me at this point in his career. Maybe not as concerned for like a Joe Mixon because he's 21. He just got drafted. Oh, man, it's like everything's like being thrown at him, and I just want to live life. I get that. But now you're 26, Tyler. It's time to bring some things back into reality. That's, yeah.
Right. I think that Tyler Eifert is like the last person that you want to see like on the back of a boat skiing. I think that's like the last person that you would like to see as a Bengals fan doing that. I mean, I don't know. See two totally different things. You see Vontaze Burfict out there busting his butt, working out, making sure that his body is going to be durable for the next season. And then you see Tyler Eifert out there like on a wave running. And it's like, are you serious? Like, I mean, I'm not saying that the guy shouldn't have fun.
No.
Obviously, you make them put in the time and effort. But, I mean, people call you Eifert. Like, Eifert, like with the H-U-R-T on it. And it's like, dude, like, you can't be out here doing all of these kind of activities where you run the risk of being hurt. It almost makes me question, you know, last year, he was recovering from an injury and then he got hurt again. Like, what were you doing? It almost is like, if you're not ready for the start of the season, I'm almost going to question what were you doing? Like,
yeah, like, and we should be.
During the off season where you skipping. And it's like, you know, obviously it's on Instagram, but you're not going to show everything that happens on Instagram. So if Eifert was to get hurt, like doing some of that stuff, he's not going to post it up there and we're not going to know.
Right.
But I just feel like you got to move smarter, dude. Like,
absolutely. At this point in your career, move smarter.
And I feel like, you know, how valuable, you know, for a fact, last that we have. It's like our offense wasn't even the same without you, dude. So why would you put yourself at risk, you know, being out there? Like, to me, that's just kind of, you're not really thinking about the team. So I don't know if that, you know, after somebody said that Tyler needs to be in bubble wrap, I agree. But, dude, like, just come on, think smarter, man. Think smarter. And you're going into a contract year. I mean, I feel like
that's. Well, yeah, but where is his agent? Yeah, so those are things that his agent should be on. Like, why is your client out here living life wild and crazy, knowing good and well he's recovering from an injury and it's a contract year.
Tyler,
Like, these are pictures that the Bengals might bring up.
Your agent is clearly not looking out for your best interest. Even if you were doing something like that, your agent would probably have called you, and said, "Hey, delete this post off of Instagram because we're going to get flack for it."
Right.
But yeah,
they should hire us, right?
Right, exactly. Hire us. That you don't make any bad decisions going into a contract year, but man, definitely have to move smarter. I mean, I'm not mad at him. I'm not telling him to do what to do with his money because I don't write the checks, but
right. But dude, think a little bit more.
Happens, then you can't be mad at anybody asking you questions. I mean, that would be a fire. Like, it seems like already, like, the media it's like him and John Ross. The media is constantly always asking them about, their injuries and everything. And it's almost like you're kind of adding some fuel to the fire doing stuff like that.
Right. I totally agree, man. Tyler, it's time to get your shit together this year. I feel like this is your year. Either you're going to continue to be with us and continue to have a successful NFL career, or at least you'll be done here in Cincinnati. Like, if you don't get through this whole year on the field, man, me personally, I don't know if I want you to come back. Because I'm tired of seeing you always on the sideline and you just giving me 2-3 weeks of amazing highlights and amazing gameplay, but then I'm not going to see you for the rest of the season.
Right, and I think someone said it that your best, I forget what it is, but you're best
only as good as your last play.
Yeah, your best ability is your availability, and that is so true. You could be so good, but if you can't be out there for your team, it's like you're not there.
Absolutely. Like Derrick Rose.
Right. Oh,
yeah, I know how great that man is, but he's always hurt. So you're only as good as what you can show us. We can't, if you're not available, Tyler.
It's funny that you said that. Someone said something about Derrick Rose being the only MVP that might not make the Hall of Fame, and it's all because of injuries.
Man's a glass house. It's crazy.
Definitely. Let's see. It looks like David Insurance Guy says that the Steelers believe that they can win. The Bengals hope that they can win. And that's the franchise different year in, year out. It's the mentality.
It's that mindset, man. Like, it's like, if you're in Pittsburgh and you're even if you're just a fan, like, they just had that mentality of, we're going to win this year. We're going to the Super Bowl. Same thing as the Patriots. Same thing as those annoying-ass Dallas people. Like, it's just the mindset. It's already, every year they're saying the same thing. We're going to the Super Bowl this year. We're going to the Super Bowl this year. And, like, if you even look at the Steelers, what they did last year, how crazy, like, they didn't have a good year last year. Even at the beginning of the season, people were saying they weren't going to the playoffs. They weren't going to do anything that year. They won a playoff game. And I think they won a playoff game because of their mindset. The mindset of them believing that we're going to the Super Bowl every year got them a playoff win. We didn't think they were going to even get to the playoffs, but they got a playoff win because of their mindset.
Right. I totally agree. And I think, like we said earlier, I think it just all goes back to the head coach. Like, you're responsible for creating that sense of, we are good. We can do this. But this is the thing. Marvin doesn't do that.
Nope.
Marvin's
but then
like, we have to be.
But then it's like,
safe. And in a sense.
But is it okay? So if it's Marvin, but what if it was Mike Brown? If Mike Brown changed his mindset, that trickles down to Marvin. From Marvin, it trickles down to your defensive, offensive coordinators. It goes down to your defensive, offensive staff. Then it trickles down to your players. So, like, I even challenged it to take a step further. Like, what about Mike Brown's mindset? But unfortunately, I feel like maybe he's a little bit too old. Maybe it's too late to change his mindset. So maybe we're right. We need to start with Marvin.
Right.
He's probably fixed in his mindset.
Right. But I think, like, when you constantly tell your players that they need to be careful and all of that, you kind of keep them from living up to the potential that they really could. Like, you try to keep them from taking risks and you try to keep them from doing certain things. But you got to think about it. Like, a lot of these championship teams, a lot of them won by taking risks. You look at the New Saints. They came and did the onside kick. That play won them the Super Bowl. You look at a lot of, like, gambles that were made, most of those won games.
We played too safe.
Too
Time to
safe for
take
our
some
own.
risks.
Oh, and Alex Pratt has said Mike Brown doesn't try to go all out to win a Super Bowl. He's just happy to be a playoff contender. What do you think about that, G? You think that that's true?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Mike Brown has ever said to his guys, like in the start of a season meeting, like, guys, we're going to the Super Bowl this year. I don't think he brings that type of energy to the team. I think he's just there like, oh, well, he seems like a good player. This seems like a good group of players this year. Let's take it to the playoffs this year, guys. Like, there's never that going into a meeting or going into a season with the intent of starting this with, we're going to the Super Bowl this year. Next. Like, he doesn't have that energy. He doesn't bring that out.
Right. I totally agree with that. Mike Brown, it's hard for me to get a sense on what exactly Mike Brown wants to do. Obviously, he's a man, but I think what gets left out of the shuffle sometimes is that he actually used to play football. So sometimes I don't feel like it's not necessarily that he doesn't know football because he's played before, but I just kind of wonder like what his end goal is. Like, is it building the Bengals as a brand? Or is it putting a winning football team on the field that has the chance to win a Super Bowl? And I think that is probably more so the brand. I think he's more worried about the Bengals as a brand, what they actually bring in. He's cool with them also being successful on the field because I think that in a sense helps the brand. But when does, winning a Super Bowl, winning a Super Bowl is going to do the best thing it can for your brand.
Yeah.
So it's like, does Mike Brown just want to win a Super Bowl from a owner standpoint, from a success standpoint, or for the fans, or does he want to do it for the brand? And I think that he wants to do it for the brand, but he still is cool with, them not getting to a Super Bowl and winning, but being a pretty good branded football team with making the playoffs. So it sucks, but
it sucks.
I would want to get a win before he passes away. You would think so, right?
You would think so. To me, it's like I always compare him to Jerry Jones in Dallas, and it's like, to me, where Jerry may not is still in the same. I feel like in the recent years, where like the teams are kind of same thing. Like, we have some regular season success, but we're not getting past that edge of the playoffs. But Jerry Jones, that's where I feel like he's still going after the Cowboys brand. Like, no matter, even if they're not winning on the field, he's building the Cowboys brand. Like, the Cowboys brand is bigger than just about any other brand in the NFL, win or lose. And that's just the energy that Jerry Jones brings to that. And I have to respect him for that. Mike Brown doesn't bring that energy to the brand or to winning on the field. So that's why, like, to me, I feel like his end goal for him personally was just to become the general manager and owner of the Cincinnati Bengals. And it wasn't much thought put into what I'm doing after that. Because our branding, you don't have to be winning on the field to still like be putting great branding things out there for our city. And I think he could be doing more with the Bengals brand, even with the small successes that we've seen on the field as Bengals fans. Like, you take us from a 2-14 season to an 8-8, that's means for celebrating the brand. Like, even small victories, like, just keep moving it forward. But I don't think he's doing that either. So that's my concern. He doesn't have the same energy for the brand that Jerry Jones has. He doesn't have the same energy for winning that Jerry Jones has. So it's just like, what are you doing, Mike? What energizes you? What moves are you trying to make? I don't know.
Right. I agree. It's like, and I feel like we're kind of pigeonholed into having to feel like that because he's not really available to the public. Like, he's almost in a sense kind of like a recluse. He only comes in the season. Now, we do see that he's on the field all of the time when the Bengals are at practice, but I think it's the fact that he does that, and like you said, like, people, once they reach a certain age, they're kind of set in their ways. I think he kind of likes it that way, but I think it opens him up to a lot of criticism. Like, if you were one of, like, Jerry Jones, you're always hearing from Jerry what's going on, what they're trying to do. We never really get that with Mike Brown. And because we don't get that, people, basically think in their heads, okay, it is what it is. I'm going to take 1 and 2. I'm going to take the fact that you didn't spend that much money in free agency. You didn't retain certain players. So in my head, even though you might feel like, okay, that might not be the best move for us as a franchise going forward, I'm going to think that, hey, you're just cheap. You don't care about winning. So unless you make yourself more available to the public and, you're going to get any kind of scrutiny anyway. I mean, you've been criticized for the last 20 some odd years anyway. What's going to be the difference between you coming out and being more social with the fans versus you laying back? I honestly feel like that opens him up to more criticism by not coming out and saying, even with the Joe Mixon thing, like he wrote a letter. That's cool, but it's like people wanted to actually see you say something,
Right. Like come out here and make a statement.
Right. You come out and it's like, to me, it's like you kind of try to use Marvin Lewis as kind of like your bulletproof shield to like shield you from the media. And Marvin Lewis doesn't even like talking to the media. So now it's like, I don't know. It's just really a mess. But I think that if he was more available to the media and was more so out there like Jerry Jones, driving home the point of, I want this team to actually win. I want the Super Bowl before, I die. I don't even think we've heard that. I don't even think we've heard him out to say, I want to get a ring or whatever before I pass away and leave on a legacy. But I think that one thing I will say is that I think that the people surrounding Mike Brown, such as, Duke Tobin, Marvin Lewis, Katy Blackburn, I think a lot of them actually do want to win. I think that they do have a goal of trying to win a Super Bowl and things like that, but they can only do so much.
Because of him.
Right.
This is where it's time to bring in a general manager.
Right.
Bring in somebody else that stir up that pot. You just go ahead and you be the owner, Mike. And we need to find a GM.
Right. In a sense, he kind of has done now. I think what Mike Brown has done to help us is he's kind of given that GM role to Duke Tobin, and he's kind of let Marvin Lewis, he's kind of let them run the show without getting in the way. Let's just say that. Like before, it was like he always just kind of messed things up and like went. It didn't even seem like he actually even checked with like Marvin Lewis or Duke Tobin on stuff. It just seemed like he was just pressing the button. And it seems like after that 2010 season, he kind of was like, okay, let me kind of back up and let them handle things. And ever since he's done that, we've been a lot more successful. Even though we were pretty successful, since the Marvin Lewis era took over in 2003 to 2009 or whatever, they have seen a lot more success since he's kind of backed up and given a lot of that control to Duke Tobin and to Marvin Lewis. But at the end of the day, he still has the final say-so, which when I talked to John Thornton in my interview, he was like, Mike Brown still has the final say on things, but, before it seemed like he probably had the final say off rip. Like, okay, we're not doing that.
Like just shooting things down.
Right. So we'll see. But with that being said, G, did you have anything else that you kind of wanted to talk about, or?
I just wanted to let everyone know to be on the. Oh.
My bad. That's my bad. So Dave, their insurance guy, says this. He says, "Hold on, Mike Brown is in a golf cart at every practice. Where is Jerry Jones? Woo! What do you think?
Selling his brand. See, that's the thing. Okay, so Jerry knows where his strengths are. His strength is being out there in your face in the media selling the Dallas Cowboys, and that's what he does well. So he doesn't need to be on the field in a golf cart figuring things out. He don't need to do all that. That's taken care of because he puts that in the hands of his head coach and his coaching staff. Where he knows his strengths are is just throwing himself out there in people's faces, and he does that well. That's where he is. Where is Mike Brown? Mike Brown's not doing that. And, okay, so he's on the field in the golf cart, but it's still not enough success with you being on that golf cart on the field right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's so because you would think like, and that's why sometimes I kind of try to sympathize with Mike Brown because I feel like he's one of those people, he's a polarizing figure. So you've heard all of these stories about him. There's this perception about him. But I feel like, and then you hear secondhand how he kind of is from former players like Corey Dillon, Carson Palmer. But it's like, I don't feel like we truly know Mike Brown. And it's like, I almost feel like bad because the way people kind of describe him, you would think that he wouldn't be a guy that's out there on the golf course. Or not on the golf course, but
on the field.
Watching the practices. You would think that he wouldn't really be involved like that. But it's crazy that he kind of is. So I don't know, man. I honestly.
But then it's like, but I'm not seeing the production either way. So it's like
Right.
where Jerry Jones is out in the media, the brand is building. He doesn't need to be on the field, and like his team is starting to get these wins back. For us, it's like Mike's not in the media like pushing our brand, and just because he's on the field isn't equating to playoff wins or anything of the nature. So it's kind of like what you need to be successful in one of these avenues.
Right. Now, another guy, Alex says in the chat, Marvin Lewis is the best thing that happened for the Bengals. He dug the organization out of a hole. Unfortunately, there is a mountain to be climbed, which will never be achieved because it's not important. And I'm thinking that Alex is meaning that mountain is winning the Super Bowl. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, but if we tell ourselves it's never going to happen, then it's never going to happen. I think that Marvin is the best thing that has happened to the Bengals thus far. He's definitely taken the Bengals from the laughingstock kind of the league, which we always had to support, like being fans, to actually getting some respect now. And I will give him the credit all day for that. But unfortunately, I don't think he's going to take us over that hump. He brought us from one place and brought us to like a ground where we're like level and people can talk about us now and like we're competitive, but he's not going to take us to the Super Bowl. So that's what I think about Marv.
I mean, I hope. I try to be optimistic, and maybe it's just, I've been watching the Bengals so long, it's almost like they make you kind of go Bengal crazy, and you still have this optimism that, one day we'll finally get over the hump. So I still feel like 2015 was that year. I still feel like
it was. Are you serious? 2015 was a freaking year. But there that curse came in and reared its ugly head.
Oh, man. And it's crazy because I'll probably say that on the show so many times, I still take it back all the way to that Broncos game. If Mike Nugent capitalizes in that game where he missed that field goal, I feel like that took the momentum out of everything. Like, had we went up 20-0 at halftime, I feel like the Broncos would have been defeated. We would have been good. That game was the one that cost us that bye week, and I feel like that bye week
we were so close.
It would have bought him an extra week to recover from the injury, even though I heard like he kind of really wasn't gonna come back. And then I feel like things would have just went differently. Like the Steelers probably would have gotten eliminated. Like, oh man.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like we would have had the opportunity to play a different team. I didn't even think about it like that, but it was that one play because we were on a roll. And I feel like that one play would have kept us in that mindset of, like, we're going there. Like, this is the year.
And think about this, G. This is what hurts the most. The team that won the Super Bowl could barely beat us with A.J. McCarron as their quarterback, as our quarterback. They could barely beat us. So just imagine if we would have had Dalton and they went on to win the Super Bowl. It's just like,
I'm not even mad at A.J. McCarron being the one behind the ball, throwing the ball, because the man knows how to win.
Right.
Now, I'll take that winning mentality. I totally agree that loss against the Broncos took the wind out of us.
Right. Definitely.
And if we had won that game, it definitely could have changed some things.
I guess once we respond to this last one, we can wrap the show up. But Dave, the insurance guys, came back and said, is it time for Katy Blackburn to take over? Honestly, I feel like that could be a whole separate show topic.
I know. We need to set that up for next week.
I think Katy Blackburn, honestly, given Mike Brown's age, I think Katy Blackburn is already basically running the team.
Yeah.
But what things will be like when she does take over the team. I'm really excited for her to be like, one of the only, she's technically in line to be one of the first, and I might be mistaken, but she might end up being the first woman owner. I'm not sure if there has been.
She's my hero.
Right. So Katy Blackburn, man, honestly, the more I started to hear about Katy Blackburn, the more I loved her, because it seemed like she was kind of instrumental in kind of convincing her dad to back away and let Marvin Lewis and Duke Tobin do their job. So I think that it's definitely time for us to let Katy Blackburn take over. I think, in a sense, she already has, like I said before. But, G, what are your thoughts on Katy Blackburn?
I mean, as a woman, and her having like this dream role of a general manager / owner of a football team, I think it's amazing. And I just want to talk to her all the time and just get some sort of like clues on how to be where she is one day. I'm all for it. And I agree with you. I think that she's already technically taken the position just because of the age of Mike Brown. There's just no official word. I think she day to day, I think she does take care of everything. And I'm really excited for when it's actually official.
Right. Now, you see I have my Lakers hat on. You know, it's a little bit of the Lonzo Ball mania, but I kind of consider very similar to Jeannie Buss. I was so glad able to finally take over that ownership from her brother, who just basically drew the Lakers franchise right into the ground. And Jeannie was just, I knew once Jeannie got into position that the right moves were going to be made. And I feel like the same thing will happen with the Bengals, because I think, and just a little bit going off topic, I feel like the women in the household, in most households, they make the best decisions. You know, when it comes to whether it's the finances, whether it's taking care of business, you can trust a woman to do the right things and handle things how they should be. And I think it's the same with the franchise. I mean, I can't wait for Katy Blackburn to take over. The only thing I'm hoping that she doesn't do is move the team. As long as you don't move the team, Katy, you are
Oh,
good.
she better not move that team.
I'm definitely team Katy Blackburn.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it just makes you think of Any Given Sunday and Cameron Diaz. Like, when I watch Any Given Sunday from the first time, even to now when I watch it, like, just the idea that this woman is running a football team, like a men's only type league, like, to me, that's such a boss move. And I agree with you, because I am a woman. I do think we make the best decisions, and I think that she will make some great decisions for not only the Bengals brand, but for the team as a whole.
Oh yeah, my wife makes all of our decisions in this house.
Man, you need to tell Mike.
I had to be the one to make the decisions, it would be bad. I'll just put that out there. But it looks like Alex said that he believes that the Rams actually had a woman owner in the 80s. I didn't know that.
Oh, I have to check that out.
Dave says, awesome. Keep up the good work. It's good to hear different angles. We appreciate that, Dave. And Alex says that they're never going anywhere. We're stuck with them. Hey, they better be stuck with us. They better stay in Cincinnati.
Yeah,
for sure.
They ain't going nowhere.
Right. But with that being said, guys, thanks for listening. Make sure that you guys subscribe. We still have the Chad Ochocinco autograph competition going on. We're actually nearing 500 followers, so we're halfway there. And G, I think you had something that you wanted to present as well, right?
Yeah.
G's actually having some pretty interesting stuff involving fantasy. I'll let you talk about that real quick.
G Knows Football is my site, and I am going to be developing a how-to guide for fantasy football players, the first-timers, or those who just wanted some extra little tips or techniques to be successful in their fantasy leagues. Look out for that in the beginning of August, and check out the site to drop in from time to time. I'm doing some videos where I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite fantasy players and their positions, just to lead up to the drop of the how-to guide. So make sure you keep a lookout on my site. Again, it's gknowsfootball.com.
Right. Definitely check it out. She's very informative, if you guys have noticed just from listening to this show. But yeah, man, if you want to get your wives, girlfriends, lady friends involved in fantasy, and you want to get a cool way to kind of introduce them, make sure you check out her stuff. And then if you want to learn for yourself how to play fantasy, definitely check it out. I mean, fantasy football is amazing. In my league, it's always fun because everybody always tries to draft AJ Green in the first round before me, because they all know that they do not. AJ Green for sure. But yeah, that being said, guys, thanks for comments and likes, and we're definitely going to keep this going strong. But as usual, we will end this with a who day, all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.
Have a good one, guys.